Alright, what's going on guys? Hope everyone's having a great day. So as you guys know, Controller has received a massive settings update which completely changes the game. Lots of people have attempted to bring you guys the basic explanation of these new settings. However, I can assure you that no video has gone into the level of depth and explanation that I'm about to go and show you in this video. I literally graphed and even attempted to find derivatives of the new sensitivity conversions, all in an attempt to truly understand the new settings enough to bring Controller Fortnite players an ultimate advanced guide to finding their new optimal sensitivity settings. I'm super excited for this because again, a lot of people made great surface level explanations. However, everyone got the sensitivity conversions wrong, and so that, among other things, is what's going to elevate this guide above the rest. So with that said, I need everyone to be on the same page before I get into the advanced instructions. So to do that, I'm going to speed through a surface level explanation of all the new settings as fast as I possibly can while still being clear. If you guys already understand the new settings, then here is a timestamp on your screen right now that will skip you to the advanced discussion. Alright, so first off, here's the old settings. These are grayed out by default, meaning you cannot change them, and if you tap to the right once, you will see the new settings screen that was added this week. The scale for look sensitivity goes from 1 to 10, and your build mode sensitivity multiplier is being applied to these two sensitivities. For example, if my look sensitivity is 10, my build sensitivity will be 20. Edit mode multiplier is multiplied by the look sensitivity as well. Now, turning use advanced options on is where everything gets a bit more exciting. As you can see, it grays out your original look sensitivity, which means you can no longer access that, and now you have a horizontal and vertical speed. Now, a lot of people messed up here saying that these values are equal to your old sensitivity. I will disprove that in great detail at the end of these settings, but just so you know, 1.0 in the old settings is not the same as 100% in the new settings. So the horizontal speed, as it says, is how quickly your view rotates left and right. Vertical speed is the same thing but up and down. Now, the horizontal boost is a multiplication applied to your horizontal speed value when your stick is essentially touching the rim of your controller. So for example, if my horizontal speed was 100% and my horizontal boost was 16%, then when I initially move the thumbstick, I'm at 100%. Yet when I hit the rim of my controller with my thumbstick, my horizontal speed will essentially be 116%. Mathematically, all you gotta do is convert the horizontal boost to decimal, which is 0.16, and since we're adding this to the horizontal speed, we'd make it 1.16. So if none of that made sense, just know that if you take 1 point whatever number your boost is, in this case 16, so 1.16, and multiply that by your horizontal speed, in this case 100, so we would take 1.16, multiply that by 100, and we would get a horizontal boost speed of 116%. And that 116 is essentially your horizontal speed when your stick hits the rim of your controller. Same logic applies to vertical boost, and then we have this setting, turning boost ramp time. Think of it as the time it takes to ramp up your horizontal speed or vertical speed from, in our case, 100% to 116% after you hit the rim of the controller with the thumbstick. So for example, if this is on 0, it's instantly going from 100 to 116 after you hit the rim. However, if this is on 1 second, it's going to be a 1 second delay after hitting the rim for it to fully ramp up to your speed from 100 to 116. So essentially, it will be a smooth, gradual transition from 100 to 116 versus it being snappy on 0. Instant boost when building allows you to have boost ramp time be more smooth for regular aiming, yet still be instant for builds when you turn this setting on. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing depends on your playstyle. Now, everything we just went over in this chunk of settings applies to your regular sensitivity when you're regularly aiming. And they also have the exact same thing, but it's applied to ADS. Look dimming time really doesn't do too much, but essentially if it's on 0 seconds, your game will feel more snappy, and if it's at max, it'll feel a bit smoother, but again, it's really difficult to feel the effects of this setting. Input curve is the way your sensitivity functions. Normally, controller is on exponential, meaning, for example, if our look speed is 100%, your sense will go from 0 to 100 gradually, whereas on linear, it goes from 0 to 100 instantly. Now, aim assist needs to be at 100%. Aim assist is essentially a level of magnetism that pulls your reticle to your target, and we will certainly talk more about this in a second. Now, legacy is your old settings, so if you turn this on, everything here in the new screen is blurred out. Press Y to apply, and then your old settings screen frees up, and you can actually change these settings. There's also a copy from basic settings, which applies the new look sensitivity up here and copies it into what the advanced version would equal down here. If you say copy from legacy, it takes your old settings and puts the equivalent version in the new settings. Now, here's where everything gets more complicated. Get ready because you thought you understood this stuff, but I can promise you there is a lot more to this. Alright, so the way that we'll start this is by answering the question of which setting you should use. Should you use the old settings screen or the new settings screen? Upshaw made a fantastic video explaining all these changes and sharing how this works. I'll link that below to give him credit, but just to summarize, when you hit use legacy controls, it's actually saying use legacy controls and legacy aim assist. Yes, that's right, aim assist is actually different between your old settings and your new settings screen. The key there is the screen. Note that if you say copy from legacy, that means you're still using the new settings screen, which means you're using the new aim assist. If you're able to change your old settings, which is achieved by enabling use legacy look controls, then you're using old aim assist because you're on the old settings screen. So what's the difference between the aim assist of the new and old settings screen? There's actually two factors. colors. There's magnetism, which as I said before is a pull of your reticle towards your opponent, and then there's bloom, which is essentially the chance of your bullets hitting your target in a given surface area. The old aim assist had lots of magnetism, but lots of bloom as well, meaning that it was difficult at a distance with an AR for people to hit their shots because the spread of bullets was more random in the reticle surface area. The magnetism, however, helped people L2 spam and made aiming in with a shotgun extremely powerful, as it moves your reticle to your opponent. The new aim assist has significantly decreased magnetism, and so this means that shotgun aim when zooming in is extremely ineffective, but it lowers in a way the bloom significantly, meaning that at a distance you can AR someone and the bullets will have a far greater chance of actually hitting your opponent within the same reticle surface area. Additionally, when zooming in only with the AR in the new settings, and I've tested this with all the guns, you get increased range when compared to the old settings. That's insane. So what can we conclude from this? The new setting is going to favor players who sit at a distance with an AR or SMG at the cost of decreased shotgun accuracy. The old settings, however, gives you the best shotgun accuracy at the cost of less AR or SMG accuracy. The choice is entirely up to you. So to make it simple, here's a visual that you can use as a baseline for determining what settings would benefit your playstyle. This is generally speaking and by no means concrete. So now this is the fun part, right? I want to get into my own research that I stumbled across when I attempted to copy my legacy controls into my new settings screen. This is the extremely complicated segment of this video, but understanding this will help you choose your best sensitivity, and by the way, this is what a lot of other videos have wrong. So to demonstrate this, as you can see, I'm on 0.75x and 0.75y for my old sensitivity. So one would expect this to be equal to 75% and 75% in the new settings screen, right? Wrong. When we copy this, it's actually giving us values of 53% horizontal, which is for the X, and 65% vertical, which is for the Y. So for one, they're not 75%, and two, they're not even equal. Why? The first thing I tested was simple conversion math. It goes like this. I'd have one basket of 3 apples, so how many apples would be in 2 baskets? You cross multiply and you get x equals 6. This assumes a linear function or a graph. When I tested this logic with the sensitivities, I said, okay, my old x sense is 0.75, and it's telling me that my new horizontal equivalent is 53% or 0.53. And then I took a different old x sense, such as 0.84, did the math, and it claims that my new horizontal x sense, or speed, whatever you want to call it, should be 0.5936, or essentially 59%. When in game, it would actually tell me that that equivalent of 0.84 is 68% or 0.68. So this told me that the graph was not linear. Also, testing the same numbers on the Y sense would give me different outputs than the new X sense values. So there was a lack of consistency, and again, this means that the ratio or graph is not linear. And just to note, I played around with the idea of perhaps other values such as ADS or boost influencing the speed value, but it does not upon testing. So the only conclusion to be drawn here is that the true value or sensitivity calculation of the original 0.75x is not the same true value or sensitivity calculation behind the 0.75 in the Y. So to make this simple, for the rest of the video, if I say the true value of the old X or Y sensitivity, I'm referring to the new horizontal or vertical speeds that are referred to in the new sensitivity screen. These values are essentially the real or true value of the sensitivity calculation behind the old X and Y sensitivity. So an old X of 0.75 does not equal an old Y of 0.75 in the old settings. Now looking at how it translates these values into the new screen, you can see that the true sensitivity value behind the Y of 0.75 is actually higher than the X of 0.75 in the old setting. And this inconsistency is not good. It's been a known fact in controller gaming that having your X and Y sense equal each other is going to give you the smoothest and most consistent results in terms of your aim. So for example, Halo is a game where having these two equal each other is extremely popular because again, aiming is so important. So for me, this whole time I thought these values were actually equal when in fact they weren't. So after I made them equal in the new settings screen using the true setting value, which is equal to the percentage here that it shows you, I found that this was so much easier to aim and be more smooth and consistent with my building and looking around. So if you're looking to be more consistent, then change these two speed values to be equal. Well, that's easy to do in the new settings screen because we know that those are equal percentages. However, if you want to do the old aim assist, right, so you want to use the old settings screen, now you have an issue. There's no option to copy your new settings into your legacy controls. So what you actually have to do is play around with it until you get the values to equal each other. Now, fortunately for you, I already converted all these values for you in a graph when I attempted to learn how it was converting a 0.75x in the old settings to 53% in the new. Basically, my question was, why is 0.75 equal to 53%? Why not 20%? Why not 75%? It just didn't really make sense. While I didn't get an answer to that, I did learn something very, very interesting about how sensitivity actually works on top of getting all those values for you guys. So my graph here, I have the old sensitivity value on my y-axis and the new sensitivity value on the x-axis. Again, the way to visualize this in a simple manner is to view the look horizontal speed as the true value of your old X sensitivity. Then look at your vertical speed as the true value behind your old Y sensitivity. So the true value of my old 0.75X is 53% or 0.53, and you can see that on the graph, the points line up like so. And then the true value of my old 0.75Y is 65% or 0.65, and so you can see I moved the dot over here to display a different Y output. So the blue line here represents the X or horizontal sensitivity. The red line represents the Y or vertical sensitivity. Note, as I said before, these are not actually linear, and you can see that by the curvature. So something is changing. Both sensitivities actually get flatter and flatter, meaning that as you go up in sense, it's actually making it faster and faster. Your true sense is getting faster, and not in a linear way, but exponentially, meaning that if you thought 0.5 on the old sensitivity is half of 1, it's not. 1 is actually several times more than 0.5, several times faster than 0.5. So that's just something very interesting to note and useful to realize. Now the green lines here represents the gap between your X and Y sensitivity, and so you can see that the gap is also not linear. This can be seen by taking two values, let's say 0.5 of the old X, that's going to equal 0.3 in the new horizontal speed, and then when you take the 0.5 of the old Y sense, that's going to equal 0.37 vertical speed in the new sense. That's a gap of 0.07, but when we take a higher old X and Y sense, such as 0.8, that new sense is going to be 0.61X and 0.74Y, a gap of 0.13. So the gap actually increases drastically as we increase our old sense. Also, just looking at the curvature of the graph, we can see that as we increase our old sense, the gap itself is actually increasing at a faster and faster rate as we go up. So what this means is that by the time you get to a Y of 0.92, your value of the new percentage is actually going to be more than 100%, meaning that when it tells you in here that 0.92 equals 100%, it's actually not 100%. In reality, it's actually more than 100%, and it's just plain 100, or the value is capped at 100, and so it's incorrect and giving you the 100 as your equivalent. Just so you know, the same applies when you hit an X of 0.98 on the old settings, the new value will actually be a lot greater than 100%. So in conclusion, to summarize this video in determining your new settings slash sensitivity, if you want to prioritize close quarters, choose the old settings screen. If you want to prioritize long range, choose the new settings screen. Now, as far as what exact sensitivity or speed you should use, 0.6 to 0.85 on the old settings is typically where most experienced players fall, and so I'd recommend trying to get used to any value that is in that range. If you're using the new settings screen, pick a horizontal speed between 38% and 70%. These are the X equivalents of 0.6 and 0.85 from the old screen, and pick a vertical speed that's between 46% and 84%. These are the Y equivalents of 0.6 and 0.85. Now, if you're lacking consistency with your aim slash building, you want the true value of your X and Y sense to be equal. The true value equals the horizontal speed and vertical speed displayed in the new settings. So if you want an equal true X and Y sense, simply make these two values equal in the new settings. But if you're using the old settings screen to prioritize close quarters or use the old aim assist, whatever it might be, then refer to my chart that will give you the X and Y that you need based on whatever true value sensitivity speed you want. So let's say you want them to equal 53%. Looking at my chart, the blue values are what you need to make the X sensitivity, and the red values is what you need to make your Y sensitivity. If you're doing this correctly, your Y should be lower than your X sensitivity in the old settings screen. With that said, guys, this video took an insane amount of time, and I truly hope it helps you guys understand how sensitivity works so that you can clean up your accuracy within game. My goal is 200,000 subs this year, and so if you guys could drop a like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. And also be sure to hit the notification bell, because YouTube is not notifying people of my new videos if they do not have the bell activated, even if they are subscribed. Like, explain that to me, YouTube. I really don't understand. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.